Okay, welcome to this session. In this session, we will see some guidelines on how to solve coding questions in various recruitment tests. For example, most of the students nowadays they are attempting in PTQ and QT and lot of other recruitment tests, and we do also have a lot of competitive programming events as well, where students or participants are always asked to solve few coding questions. So we're gonna quickly look at some of the very basic important points which we have to consider before solving these coding questions. So in short, we'll be seeing an approach. So I'm not saying this is a thumb rule approach like everyone should follow, but this approach mostly suits to most of the students. So how to attempt to solve these coding questions, and what are the important points you need to make sure. Let us start with the approach. So when you get to see the coding questions on the recruitment platform, the first and very important thing is that you have to read the problem very carefully. See, reading problem carefully and understanding it in one go is a trick to solve those problems well within the time. If you do not read the problem carefully, no matter how efficient or how well algorithm you write, you are bound to fail in your first attempt. And it's widely known and well accepted fact that it is always better to write programs cleverly so that you end up spending less time in debugging them. Remember, debugging is always a very costly and very time intensive. Sometimes it takes a lot of efforts to debug where your program went wrong. So make sure you read the problem very carefully. After reading that, you have to ensure that you are in a position where you have understood what exactly is the input this problem is expecting and what exactly is output your program has to produce. Sometimes most of programs go wrong just because you fail to read the output properly, or just because you didn't output the output of your program in a format which is expected by those evaluation engines. So make sure you understand the input and output, and once you understand input and output, you have to go through the sample input and output cases. So these are the steps which you will be doing before even you jump to start coding the problem. Make sure you understand the sample input and output cases, go through that input, find why the specific output has been listed. So half of your logic builds when you start analyzing the sample input and output. So it's very important you go through sample input and output, and I've seen many students who usually skip this and they directly go to editor and start typing the code, but that's the wrong approach. It takes more amount of time. So make sure you understand input and output, sample input and output cases well. Then once you have gone through all that three steps, you have to make sure that you have also understood the constraint associated with input. Sometimes in a competitive coding platforms, they do give you some constraints for the input. For example, input will be in between 10 to 20, or they will say that maximum number of test cases which your program will be asked to execute will be in the range of 100 to 1000. Also, sometimes you have to take care. There are some minute observations. For example, sometimes they will say that and the number of inputs need to be processed by a program is less than, or is it less than or equal to, because generally these constraints generally they become corner and edge cases, and if you do not take a proper care of these constraints, some of the test cases might fail, because usually the corner and edge cases are based on these constraints. So understanding constraints associated with the problem specifically, and most often the constraints are most of the time they are associated with the input, and there could be cases where there could be some constraint associated with the output as well. So make sure uh, you well understand all the constraints associated with the problem. And once you're done with this, try to break the problem into sub problems. So from here onwards, we are looking at how your approach of writing code starts. See, sometimes if problem is trivial, you can directly start writing the code, but sometimes the problem looks like it is composed of multiple tasks. For example, a problem might ask you to have some sorted values. It might ask you to search some values, or it might ask you to check for palindromes. So in this case, sorting, searching, palindrome, they're like a small sub problems. And usually when you practice, the logic of these problems is very quite clear. So you would in a position where you will understand, okay, these are three sub problems I need to solve, and then somehow I need to link them, I need to sort, then palindrome, check, sort, such kind of link could be there in the test problem. So it might not be applicable for all the problems, but yes, generally trying to find out sub problem in that. And if you have already solved a sub problem before doing your practice test, then that's a quick advantage to you. Then once you try to break them into sub problems, it's now time to work on rough logic and algorithm in your mind or on a paper. Why it is important? See, as I always tell you, designing an algorithm is a different and writing a program is a different. So a good language, for example, when I say if you're a good Python developer, that doesn't mean you by heart every Python syntax. A good Python developer is the one who thinks to write algorithm in terms of Python language constructs. Those are good Python programmers. Likewise, if I say you are a good C language developer, it doesn't mean you are very good in C, you know all syntax. It doesn't mean you are good C. Being a good developer in that language, it means that you can think in terms of that language. And it does help you in a lot of sense, but most of the times I recommend you to first work out a small rough logic or algorithm in your mind, and then afterwards you have to start coding. Don't directly start coding and then think on logic. That usually will not give you a good solution, and sometimes you might even end up with the wrong code and wrong output. Then starts an entire sequence of debugging, checking wrong test cases, and it takes too much of time. So first get the rough logic, then start coding onto that. I hope you understood this approach, and this will definitely help you in solving the coding questions for the recruitment test. It could be of NQT or any other platform. Now, some of the very important notes before we jump to the further section of this video. The important notes are, before writing the code, make sure you should have a rough working in logic. It's very important and it helps a lot. So start practicing the coding problems with this approach in your mind. Don't directly jump to writing code from the moment you saw the problem. Then input constraints, time and memory limits generally give you a quick idea about the expected complexity of algorithm. For a normal trivial tests, it might not be a big problem, but when you appear for a competitive coding rounds of big product based companies, they stress a lot on complexity of algorithm. So this is a quick and rough way to judge like what kind of solution they are expecting. Then I very heavily recommend and stress that you have a good practice of whatever programming language you are comfortable with. That programming language surely does have some utility functions like string manipulation, string functions, some data structure. For example, if I talk about Python, we have list, tuple, counters, DAC, ordered dictionary, default dictionary. There are some of the data structures which are given to you, and they also come with a lot of built-in searching and sorting algorithms and lot of other utility algorithms and data structure implementations. Having a good knowledge of them would help you a lot in writing code for these recruitment tests, because they save a lot of your time. And most often these utility functions of language runtime, they are implemented very efficiently in terms of memory requirement and time complexity. So it will always add up to the code logic which you're going to write for the problem you have been asked to. So it applies to every language, right from C to any language which you use. Every language comes with some of the utility functions. Make sure you have a very good practice and a very good hands-on proficiency skill in using those functions. Then sometimes most often asked question, shall we use IDEs for such kind of test or not? Usually it depends upon that the test settings and their terms and conditions. I would say yes, as long as if that platform allows you to use IDEs, go ahead and use the IDEs, and as you all know, the IDEs makes us write code far more quicker. But sometimes we have platforms which don't allow you to switch windows, switch tabs, then that might create an issue. So be careful when you switch your windows from your testing platform to IDE. That's it for IDE. And another important thing, manage time properly and efficiently. When I'm talking about this, see, sometimes if the recruitment test asks you to solve two problems 60 minutes, you have to make a chalk out a plan for yourself how much time you're going to spend for per problem. And let's say 60 minutes two problems, you can easily give 30-30. But if they say one problem of difficult nature, one of easy, you have to chalk out a plan that for easy you will give 10 minutes, and for harder one I will give you around say 50 minutes, or that's how you're comfortable with. But managing time is needed. See, for an easy problem you have allotted 20 minutes, you should make sure that you won't spend more time than 20 minutes. Sometimes it's quite enticing to the coder that okay, I will spend little 5 more minutes, I'll get solution. I'll spend little more 5 minutes, I'll get a solution. But you keep on ending wrong test results, time limit exceeded. Then I don't think it's a wise approach to spend time on one single problem for the entire test duration. Rather, there are equal chances that you can even crack the other problem as well. So my suggestion to you is attempt all the problems rather than sticking with one problem for whole and wasting the entire time on that and not getting that problem not solved completely. At least I would advise you to give an attempt to both the problems. See the moment you switch to second problem, if you feel it is even more tough than the first problem you're working, then you can easily come back to your first problem and spend your entire time on first problem. But make sure that it's important that you manage time properly, and you always get this knack of managing time only by practice. So make sure you very well plan out how to attempt the test when they have multiple problems to solve. So these are the important notes for this coding approach. Then let me move. Okay, so let us solve some problems based on the approach which we have seen. So I will be using two hacker problems, very small problems. I won't say they are very complex, they're very easy problem, just to show you uh, the way we draft a logic, the way we write a program on platforms like HackerEarth. And most often you will also encounter similar platforms for your NPTQ, your NQT, and other kinds of recruitment tests. So let me switch to HackerEarth, and then we will try to solve the two problems there. Okay, so we are on HackerEarth screen. So here you can see that I have one problem here. I will share the link to this problem in the description of this video, so you can go through this problem later on and you can attempt to solve this problem on your own as well. So let us solve this problem. So this problem, let us first go through that, and I have chosen Python 3.8 as a language for me to type. So I'll be writing Python based code to this. So as we have seen, what's the most important thing? First, read the problem clearly. So when you're reading the problem, try to don't skip it. Like we always, most of today's generation students, they suffer from the TLDR syndrome, too long didn't read. Don't let that happen. Read each and every word carefully. Sometimes very trivial and most twisted facts are somewhere in the very corner, and the way it depends upon how you interpret those words as well. So let us read the problem. What problem says that Danny has a possible list of passwords for Manny's Facebook account. All password length is odd. Okay, this is very important point to remember. So what are the passwords which your program gonna process? It is odd. It is very clear, right? Then, but Danny knows that Manny is a big fan of palindromes. So his password and reverse of his password both should be in the list. Okay, so maybe we will be going through a list of passwords wherein a password's palindrome also appears in that. Okay, so you have to print the length of Mani's password and the middle character. Okay, so what's the problem? The problem is that we are given a list of passwords, odd length passwords, and since Manny is a big fan of palindromes, so his password and reverse of his password both should be indexed. So I think since Manny is a fan of palindrome, that password, uh, what is the password Manny is using, its reverse of this shall also be in the list. That's what interpretation we get from by reading this. Okay, and what we have to do is we have to find that password and print its middle character. Okay, no, they have given a note. They said the solution will be unique, and probably this might be referring that from all the length of password there is only one password, such that the password and the reverse of that password both are in the same list of passwords. So this is very important thing to note. So 2 points which are most important for my coding is that password length is odd and that solution is unique. So I won't be having multiple passwords such that the reverse of that passwords are also in the list. I'll be only having one. So now let us see how the input is being provided. The first line of input contains integer n, the number of possible passwords. Okay. So the first line I am going to read will be an integer, and I will be reading n number of passwords from it. Okay. So each of following n line contains a single word, its length being an odd number greater than so. Okay. So I can be very sure that password's length is greater than 2. Right. This is one more condition which is important for me to code. And less than 14. Okay, so I can be very easy. So I can even decide the array length based on these two characters. If you want to fix how many number of character array should I declare, specifically when we use C and C++, sometimes most people do that. And all characters are lowercase, so I need not worry about uppercase, lowercase, since all input to my program will be lowercase English alphabets. Okay. Now what should I output? The first and only line of output must contain length of correct password and the central letter. Okay, so I need to find out the length of password. Remember, I think I need not print that password, rather that just the length of the correct password and its central letter, the middle one, right? Okay. And I have a constraints here, and what these constraints are saying, n. What is n? The number of possible password. Okay, the max number of password lists which I am gonna read in my program will not be more than 100, and be clear that is less than or equal to, it could be 1 or even max 100. So sample input 4, so 4 means n, and I have 4 passwords given. So here it is 3 and B. So all passwords are of length 3. Obviously the length is 3 because they said that contain the length of correct password and the central letter B. So is there any string whose reverse is also in this? So DEF reverse means FED. So this is not reverse and reverse. So I think ABC means CBA. I think this should be the password. So this password reverse is also in the same list. So and the middle character is B. Okay. So time limit 1 second. Memory is far more. Time limit 1 second. Okay. Okay. So let us try to write a solution for this. So what the first thing I need to do is I need to read in integer. Let me declare n. And since it is an integer, I'll type it into integer input. So that will take care of n. And after reading n, the number of I would get n number of next lines. So let me also read. So for that, let me make a list. So with a name called as passwords, and I'll read all the input once and I'll store it in passwords, because I have 100 here and memory 256 MB, and each character is not exceeding 14. I would prefer to store them in memory rather than reading in each iteration. So for I in range, so how many times I need to read? N times. So I'll say for I in range n, I'll read that. So when you're typing Python, be careful about indentation and the number of space or tab you use. I prefer to always use tab to indent. rather than spaces. Now what I need to do is I need to read it them, right? So passwords into this list, I'll append the input which I'm going to read. Okay, so this now takes care of reading inputs. Passwords dot append and input. Okay, and after reading that, what I need to do is I need to search in this password a string such that its reverse is also in that. Right, that's what I need to do it. So what I'll do is for each password in passwords, I'll see if its reverse is also in that. How do I reverse in Python? As a quick trick, I'll use the slicing way of reversing the string in Python. So what I'll do is if password is equal to reverse of that. So password reverse. This is slice operator used to quickly reverse that. So I'm checking for each password in passwords. Okay, so what I need to do is instead I need to check if, let us do one thing, let us check if the reverse of that password is in the passwords or not. Okay, so for every password which I read from password, I'm checking if its reverse is also in it. If it is the case, then I found that password from this. So if I find it, the moment I find it, what should I do? I need to print the length. I hope this is space separated. Look at this, it is space separated, so I need to take care of doing everything in one line. So print the length of password plus, I'll do this in str, preferably convert into string, plus add one space because your output demands a space in between. And after printing length, I need to print a middle character, and since it is an odd, I think I'll directly do divide by 2. That should be safe, so I won't be getting that. Since it's odd, it makes the program far more easier. So what I need to do is middle character of that. So middle character of password means list of, I need to do length of password by 2. Okay, that should print the length of that. And I think once done with all this, I think it's better to break the loop. I don't want to iterate further once I find that, but since they have said it is unique, the moment I find, I'll just break the loop, because I don't want to do unnecessary comparisons later on if I find the string in the first iteration or in first couple of iterations. So okay, so let us see if this works. First I'll click on compile and test. So let me see if the sample test cases execute. I think they said in they we have for, I should write something for I in range. See, as long as here this platform has given me error, but not all platforms might give you an error. So at that point of time, you can quickly copy, and you can quickly copy here and paste it in your IDE, and you can go through error, or you can execute sometimes. So this is sometimes a very most students do face a problem. Fortunately, here this editor was able to show me this error, but if it didn't, I was supposed to debug every line and find what's wrong here. I just missed one of the basic component required for for loop in Python. Let me see if it now works. Okay, the sample test cases have passed. Now let me submit. Okay, so you can see that all test cases have passed. Okay, almost 10 test cases all have passed, and you should see that how the problem works. So look at the problem and look at the solution which we have. So the code looks far more elegant because we have used Python. but you could have written this in Java, C and C++. That's also fine. If you prefer to C and C++, that's also fine. C++, if you're preferring C++, make sure you have a good and very expert hands-on on standard template library in your C++. If you are using Java, make sure your collections and string functions are super strong. If you are in Python, make sure your Python collections and string utility functions in Python are very strong. So that helps a lot. For example, here if you look at this, reversing was a quick trick for me. Okay, I was not bothered about what memory occupies because time was 1 second, and I was, based on constraints, I was very sure that this won't exceed time limit exceeding. So this was a trick which I could quickly do it, and for searching in Python was very easier here because it gives me this in. But had it been some other language which might not give you such an elegant and easy way of checking, that might be a little bit tricky to add more lines of code. So this is the one problem, and I have one more problem. This is anti-palindrome strings. Let us also see how I can write and how we cannot. Okay, so let us read this problem. So what here the problem says that you are given a string S containing only lowercase alphabets. Once again, it's important that I stress on lowercase alphabet. So once again, I'm relieved of the issues which I get because of lowercase and uppercases. So you can swap two adjacent characters any number of times, including 0. Okay. So I have a string, and what they are saying is I can swap characters in S, that two only adjacent characters. A string is called anti-palindrome if it is not a palindrome. Yeah, okay. That's a definition of anti-palindrome. If it is not possible to make a string anti-palindrome, then find lexicographically smallest anti-palindrome. Okay. Otherwise, print -1. Maybe this is slightly odd. So you are given a string S. We need to swap. We can swap the characters. A string is called anti-palindrome. Okay. What I need to do is, if it is possible to make a string anti-palindrome or not. That's the code I need to write. I have been given a string, and if it is a palindrome, I need to make it as anti-palindrome. And if I couldn't make it as anti-palindrome, then I need to print -1. And if it is a palindrome and I want to make it as anti-palindrome, then I need to make sure the anti-palindrome is lexicographically smallest anti-palindrome. Okay, so the word lexicographically means alphabetic order. The way you generally you see the roll call of students, right? The alphabetic order of mark sheets, mark lists, and that. So lexicographically means alphabetically ordered, and if I have a string, for example, if I consider a string, if I say the lexicographically ordered least value of this would be nothing but arrangement of characters in this in ascending order of the character value. That gives the least value lexicographically, and it becomes an anti-palindrome. Okay, so I could find a small sub problem where I might need sorting. Okay, so this is what I was calling. So there could be a sorting as well. So I have a sorting here. Okay, let us look at input format. The first line contains integer t denote number of test cases and description of t test cases. Each line contains string s of lowercase. Okay, so I'll be giving test cases and they are giving a t number of strings to read. Okay, then what I need to do is for each test case print the answer in a new line. Okay, what answer I need to print? The lexicographically smallest anti-palindrome. And if it isn't possible, then I need to print -1. Okay, so let us look at the constraints. Okay, now this program might get 100 test cases, and string is okay. It's of minimum 2 characters, and it could go 2 into it's a very huge string character. Okay, so I cannot read all and store in my program. Rather, I need to read input by input. Okay, so sample input is 4. So this is first is BPC. Is it a palindrome? It's not a palindrome. If it is not a palindrome, I need to swap it and bring it into a least lexicographically least anti-palindrome. So as I said, just sort it alphabetically. BCP, yes, okay. I have PP. Even if I sort it, I get the same palindrome. That's why it's -1. Deep, sort it and okay. ZYX, it's already anti-palindrome. Bring it in a least lexicographically least order. Just sort it in XYZ. Okay. So the rough logic is to just sort them and print them, and after sorting check if they still remain the same. If they still remain the same, I need to just print -1. Okay, so they have given explanation. Test case BCP is not and it is not. In second test case you can. I think they are not asking us to print number of swaps. Had they asked this done, then that could have been a very difficult problem. Or they are not even asking what's the minimum swaps required. So this is, I think this is a fairly a trivial simple problem. Let us try to solve this problem then. Once again, I'll prefer to use Python. So what I need to do is I need to read the test cases. So I'll say int of input. So this I'll read a test case, and for each test case I need to read string s, and then I need to check this. Fine. Now since the strings and they are larger one, I will not read them in program and store, but rather I'll read one by one and apply my logic. Okay. So for I, okay, once again, I in range, for I in range t, every time I did that, so let us read it in s as they have read. S is equal to input. Okay, I am reading s. What should I check for? After reading s, I need to bring it in anti-palindrome format. So the first thing is, quick thing is, I can just sort that. Okay, so anyhow I need to always sort. So let us say sorted s. I need to sort s. So if I want to sort s, I'll use sorted method in Python. So this has a sorted version of string s. Once I have the original string and a sorted version of that string, I will be checking if I need to check if they are both equal. Okay, if they are both equal before sorting and after sorting, it means that they still remain palindrome. It's not an anti-palindrome. Before sorting and after sorting, as you can see that if we have some palindromes and after sorting, usually most strings they do not remain in palindrome, but if they still remain, means it is not possible to make an anti-palindrome out of them. Then in that case we have to print -1. So I'll check if s equal to sorted form of it. If it is equal, then it's an anti-palindrome. I cannot do anything. Then I need to print -1. If it is not equal to, let us suppose if it is not equal to, then I need to sort it, and then I have to print that. So generally when we sort it, I am reading them as a list. So when you're reading them as a list, it's important you convert that into string. Okay, this is actually it becomes a list. So if you want to convert that into list, the best thing is to use join. Let me see if I use join sorted s. That will definitely give me an anti-palindrome. Okay, so I think this should do that. Let me just go ahead and see if my sample test cases pass for this. So it says wrong answer. Let me check what's the problem with. Okay, BCP deep XYZ. What's wrong? Okay, I get -p. Okay, so I'm getting right output here. I'm not getting -1 here. It means that, okay, so s and sorted s, they both are lists, and I don't think we have to directly compare them in this order. So the best thing is, let me see if I do this. I'm not right now, I'm not worried about the complexity. Okay, so BPPC, and for deep I didn't get something wrong. Okay, so the I think we are getting -1 -1. It means that I have to just check for this. Some just we are missing some small conditions. So this generally occurs when you type this code live and when you check this. So we need to analyze. Let us analyze them. So I think here what we have done is I am first checking if I need to, if I'm not wrong here, I need to first check for palindrome. I need to make sure these cases are first taken care of. So what I'll do here is, instead of joining them both, I have sorted and the initial version and that. So what I'll do is, first I'll check if the given string is palindrome or not. How do I check if given thing is palindrome or not? S equal to S of this. If it is palindrome, then what I'll do is I will check if anti-palindrome after sorting them is possible or not. Then I'll check if sorted S equal to the reverse of, means I want to see it's a palindrome, right? Then I have sorted it. Even if after sorting if still remains palindrome, then it's not possible to get an anti-palindrome of that. So I'm talking about this PP case. So here let me check if it is sorted S, reverse of that they are square brackets with slide. If it still remains this case, then it's an anti-palindrome. I cannot do it, I need to print. If not, then I'll have to print the sorted one. This sorted S. Else it would be okay. If it is not, I'll be directly jumping into this. I'll get sorted one. Fine. Let me see if it works. Okay, so sample test cases have passed. Okay. Let me, fingers crossed, and submit. Let's see if all our test cases pass. Okay. So okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So all test cases passed. So this is what I was talking about. Practice makes you perfect, and every time you practice, it shouldn't be a blind practice. You have to, every time you have to make sure, you need to find where are you actually going wrong and how you can improve. For example, in the first problem, the mistake I made was this. So next time when I was solving, I made sure that I don't do that mistake. And when I had some wrong output, it's always good to go back to problem and analyze these inputs, the output and that. So just careful. And only thing, as I said, that more you nervous and more you hurry up in finishing these things, more the scope for errors, and you get an errors, you waste a lot of time in debugging, and that might help you, that might negatively affect your chances in scoring high. So that's it for this video. If you have any questions, you can share in the comments below this video, and I would be happy to answer them. So thank you.